Hello, everybody. Welcome back in NRG Championship Series. And Mundelein Corbin Hostler joined by Devin Doomwake O'Donnell. And Devin, I think you know what time it is.
Oh, it's top 8 time, Corbin.
It is top 8 time. Let's take a look at the bracket because here we go with our modern 10K top 8. Let's take a look at the players who we are about to watch. You just saw Jacob Havard win his 8th round with Jeskai Affinity, and that puts him into the top 8, where he will be meeting Casey Ryback on Esper Gorios. I think we maybe saw some Gorios Vengeance earlier today, and you're going to get a chance in the top 8 because there's 2 of them. But after that is Raja Suleiman on Trusty Azorius Control, Robert Pounds on another build of Affinity, Jacob Cup, you watched win with Belcher. Matthew Bailey, Samwise combo has been tearing it up. And in our final match, Ryan Hayes on that Esper Gorios deck, one of our players to watch, I'll note. And Daniel Staup on the Green Tron list. So there you go, Doom. That is a modern top 8 if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, and you mentioned Ryan Hayes on our players to watch leaderboard, kind of the last bastion for our players to watch. Really the only person who of the players who we were taking a look at, was the only person who really made a super deep run here in terms of the leaderboard. And, a lot of what I like about this top 8, nice diversity, right? There's 2 Esper Gorios, 2 Affinity, and then everything else is a single copy of each. And,
they're all very different, right?
Yeah, a lot of interesting matchups too.
Format.
Yep.
Yeah, because an Esper Gorios deck plays out just so wildly different than, say, an Affinity deck, than, say, a Tron deck or a Belcher deck, or it's just, and even the combo decks, right? The Gorios combo decks and the Belcher combo deck and the Samwise combo deck, they all play out in very different ways that require different answers. And that's what really gives the format so much depth, I think, is probably the way to look at it, because it's not just like, okay, well, we play all the same cards, but we have 6 cards different for our combo, and that's a different deck. No, Belcher is very distinct from Samwise Gamgee combo.
Yeah, and you bring up Belcher. I think this is actually, like, looking at the bracket in terms of how the matchups played out, I think this is a pretty good looking top 8 for Belcher. I think Jacob is going to be favored against the Samwise deck. I think Jacob is going to be probably favored against either Gorios or Tron. Certainly, probably more favored against Tron than Gorios. But yeah, I think this looks like a pretty good top 8 for Belcher.
Yeah, and yeah, someone said, hey, if Raja on Control loses, it should be a cakewalk for Belcher. But also no Boros Energy, by the way. As I called it earlier, sort of the de facto best deck of the format, just because it sort of, was a known quantity post Nadu, is straightforward, has a lot of angles to it, but no copies of it here in our top 8.
Yeah, I see three zeros here for Jacob. Funny start. Boros Energy is one of those decks where it is, most of the time going to be the most played deck and most popular deck in a given room for Modern. But it's one of those decks where, like, there are certainly the tools that exist to beat it, and just in terms of matchups, right? I think both Esper Gorios and Belcher have both a pretty reasonable matchup against Boros. And we see those decks represented here, and I think that the people who showed up to this event certainly came prepared for Boros, and that definitely shows.
Yeah, well, this is the potential to be a very explosive start for Jacob here, right? With, as you said, the 3 zeros. I mean, but we didn't have the pinnacle or anything to pay it off, right, in sort of the most straightforward way. So instead, it's just kind of a lot of permanents put into play, but at least for now, they kind of amount to air for Jacob.
Yeah, Jacob did have the Thoughtcast on turn 2, which was met with a Force Negation from Casey. And you'll notice that, Jacob maybe is going to sacrifice them this turn, but the baubles are still in play. So that signifies to me that Jacob potentially has another payoff in hand. Could be a second Thoughtcast, could be something like a Kappa Cannoneer. Although if it was Kappa Cannoneer, that probably would have got cast this turn. So likely not that, but if Jacob doesn't have a payoff, maybe needs to dig for a third land to be able to activate the saga. We might see some cashing in of the baubles this turn.
Yeah, that would make sense to me. Just to try to dig for some gas, you got to get something going. Your opponent, has a high power ceiling on their deck. You got to get moving.
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to mention here in Casey's deck list, and we've seen this, a little bit kind of materialize in modern over the past past month or so, is the inclusion of Quantum Riddler. As you see, that's the card that Casey casts here. 4 copies in this Espergorios deck, and Espergorios is a deck that already wants to play Ephemerate anyways. Because the turn that you Gorios, you want to Ephemerate to be able to keep the large legendary creature in play. And given the fact that your deck already has Ephemerate, it just makes sense to play this card. And also, Riddler pairs very well with Psychic Frog, where you can
Yeah.
use the frog to get your hand a little bit lower, and then that will draw you more cards off of the Riddler.
Oh, here we go. Drawing cards is the name of the game with Thoughtcasts, and we've seen a lot of very effective Thoughtcasts out of Jacob today. Don't think I've seen one cost more mana than that.
Yeah, and the Amber in play for Jacob was able to turn on, or excuse me, the Tameo turned on the Amber, so was able to play the Tameo and the Thoughtcast in the same turn. And it might not seem like a lot, but that is a threat. The Tambio Ultimate will threaten to draw Jacob enough resources to just sort of plow through whatever Casey has. So that is something Casey has to respect here. Looking in the main deck, there are 3 copies of Prismatic Ending. So if Casey has one of those, that can go after the Tamio. But yeah, Casey doesn't really have a ton of ways to pressure the Tamio outside of Psychic Frog, and maybe if Agorios can resolve that, can go after the Tamio.
Yeah, nice. I don't know if explosive is the right word, but solid start here from Jacob. Taking advantage of being on the play, and does put the pressure back on Casey here. So we'll see what the follow up is. Is access? It's just we're going to pass the turn. Okay, so we've got 1 mana open here, and
Not sure what the discussion. Oh, okay. The Thoughtcast cost 2 mana, right? Because there's 3 artifacts in play, and I think Jacob only tapped 1 for the Thoughtcast, so we're just kind of clearing that up a little bit. But
all right, well,
Prismatic,
Tameo bites the dust as well. Unexpected ending or a prismatic ending there. Takes it down. So now we're going to have to, instead of untapping with a planeswalker, if you're Jacob, have to decide what to do with chapter 3 on this Urza saga.
yeah, and Jacob does have a couple of good, notable targets here, and does have a Tormod's Crypt in the main deck, so that is something that Jacob can go ahead and get if he's worried about Casey setting up a Gorios next turn. Could also go towards something like Lava Spur Boots if he has an additional land to be able to equip the Construct token. But that maybe is not as good in the face of a Solitude, so might just want to be a little bit more defensive, or, well, if he doesn't have a land, just get an Opal.
Yeah, sure. Just go for some mana, I guess. Now, maybe that means signaling, I've got a spell in my hand that I need this mana to cast. Maybe just deciding I have multiple spells in my hand. I need to progress my board by getting this opal here. You don't see that quite as much, though, but that is where we're at. So
Could be a Metallic Rebuke,
that was my thought.
or maybe another Thoughtcast. Ooh,
Okay.
Emissary. Okay. So this will be able to, let's let Jacob's battlefield go a little wider. Oh, that's why we didn't search the crypt. We just had it in hand.
Always had it. Yeah.
Well, that makes more sense.
Nice old Tormod script there too, by the way. But that is just obviously you put them in your deck to draw them. Sometimes, I guess some of them you put them in your deck not to draw them. But in this case, you wanted to draw that Tormod script and draw it. Jacob did, and using it as a follow up there to the Pinnacle Emissary is just an absolute huge way to start off the top 8 for our number 1 seed here.
Yeah, and now Jacob has the kind of the mix of things that he wants, right? He has pressure in play, has a way to stop Casey from doing his powerful thing in that Tormod script. So now Casey not only has to find something like Gorios plus large creature, but then also find another prismatic ending to be able to answer that crypt before he can really go for anything like that. So, with that crypt in play, Casey might want to just say, okay, well now, maybe I'm leaning less on the Gorios side of things and go towards stuff like Riddler and Ephemerate or Solitude and Ephemerate, and just kind of play more of a fair game. Because if that one construct gets answered, then Jacob no longer really has any meaningful pressure.
All right. Well, this is probably not how you expected this game to go if you're Casey, just in the sense that it's, usually you expect to not be controlled by the affinity deck. You expect to be trying to control the affinity deck. And especially when you had such a interaction heavy start there from Casey. So definitely back up against the wall here quite a bit, especially as, we see another Thoughtcast come down for Jacob, just refill that hand even more.
Yeah, Jacob, looking for stuff like Metallic Rebuke because presumably Casey is setting up to just cast the Quantum Brother this turn. There's a big attack here, though, and it doesn't look like Casey has a Solitude, so this should be a 2-turn clock, right? This should be 7, I believe 9 damage, putting Casey down to 6, yeah. And Casey just doesn't
Metallic
have a lot
Rebuke
going on.
still being represented as well.
Yep. If you're in Jacob's side, you're just saying, okay, well, if Casey had a Solitude, he would have cast it by now, so maybe just, you're just kind of chilling, right?
I mean, this is, sometimes you don't need a 10-10.
Yeah, I mean, Casey really looking for a Solitude. Like, the combination of Solitude and Ephemerate would certainly clean up this battlefield.
Yes, very
And
quickly.
so gonna go for Sewers here. Because, I mean, the Riddler is not even really that good here. If Casey just, if Casey's playing his cast Riddler, even if Jacob didn't have the counterspell, the Riddler would just have to chump block the construct anyways. I think it's another Riddler that Casey's looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Puts that one in the graveyard. Are we going for a mending, flashback to mending? Okay. That's going to get him a couple cards deeper here.
Yeah, really
gains a little life.
Really needs to find a Solitude here. That is a way that Casey gets back in this game. I mean, a Pending would also do it. Pending to just, clear the Construct token, because that is the main threat. If you can answer the Construct token, you can...
Yeah, you've got a little bit of a buffer on just, the pokes from the rest of them.
Okay, there's a shock.
Oh, that portends something good.
You would imagine. But yeah, I mean, again, the Riddler is... Okay, I think Casey has passed. So maybe going to do like an upkeep Solitude. Yep. So we'll see if there is...
called it. That's what he needed. That's what he has. So
no Metallic Rebuke.
Here we go. It resolves. Casey did a good job, or Jacob did a good job representing it the whole way, but it wasn't theirs. So the Solitude makes this game very interesting again.
Yeah, now Casey all of a sudden is just sort of, well, I mean, it had in the race at least, right? Because you're gaining 3 off the Solitude. A lot of things that Jacob could have here. Another Saga, a Kappa Cannoneer. Looks like we're lining up some amount of mana for the Emissary.
Okay.
Which is not bad, but...
It's great, yeah, but one of the less high-powered plays in this situation, even though you are going to go ahead and get... we're going to play another Opal just to get a trigger, to get a token. Here we go, though. We're tapping a lot of creatures. This is a big improvise. I know what it might be.
Yeah. There is the turtle. So now, Solitude, good card. Not quite as good. Although, if Casey does have an Ephemerate...
Yeah, he can pay the ward.
He's got 5 mana.
It's not unreasonable that he might have that. It does look like he has at least 1 or 2 lands in hand, but we've seen some Faith, played and Faith flashback a Faithless Mending this game. So, very possible that he does have that. And if so, has maybe in his mind felt like, okay, well, maybe we can see a way through this here. But Traxa now hitting the graveyard.
Yeah, that one's not doing much against the Tormod's Crypt, though.
And we're just going to pass the turn back. All right. 5 mana open for Casey still.
So yeah, Ephemerate on Solitude would do the trick, unless Jacob had the Rebuke. Because even though Casey can pay for the Rebuke on the Ephemerate, he then wouldn't have enough mana to pay for the ward on Kappa Cannoneer.
Right. So, which makes you think if he had it, he might have main phased it instead of passing.
Right. Yeah.
Which means that this might be a big Kappa Cannoneer turn for Jacob here to this Jeskai Affinity deck that we watched a couple times on camera. It's looked good, and it took the #1 seed here.
Kappa Cannoneer is a hell of a card.
Yeah, it's been the finisher every time.
If we can get that one up on camera real quick, that card is crazy. You wanna talk about payoffs for Affinity? Have we been talking all this time about
It's an
Arcbound
ephemeral.
Ravager? And I mean, there's just nothing that does it like Kappa Cannoneer. That card is wild. Just the ability to, the fact that it's so hard to kill, it
Yeah.
can't be blocked. It just keeps on growing. It's crazy. But there's
But
the
here we
Ephemerate.
go. He did in fact have it, and maybe he determined Jacob didn't have the metallic rebuke or decided he needed to wait to combat anyway. But either way, it works out. Casey's Ephemerate on the Solitude is able to pay the ward. So Kappa Cannoneer, as big as it was, all it does is really put Jacob's life up to 33. And Casey, I
he's
guess,
casting
falls to
another
2
one
from the attack.
I think Jacob might be casting another Kappa Cannoneer, but that one's not even good in the face of the Rebound Ephemerate. Although,
The
the drones might do the trick here because
yeah, he's
now,
just got this swarm of 1/1s at this point.
because you have to kill the Kappa Cannoneer and you have to pay 4 mana. That's basically your whole turn. And then if you do that, you can't attack with the Solitude this turn. Although, to be fair, even if Casey could attack with the Solitude, he goes to 5. There's 5 drones in place. That would still be enough.
Yeah, I mean, as it currently stands, he does just get swung to death, even if he answers the Cannoneer. So,
Yeah.
I mean, while you basically are priced into, you just have to do that, you're then going to need something else.
Looks like we are. I think in response to the Ephemerate, we are casting Faithful Mending. Pretty
I think we
heads up
might have
play
missed some
here.
counters on the Cannoneer, right?
Yeah, Casey.
But
Yeah.
we got there. Okay, so there we go. That takes it down. Game 1 going over to Jacob Havard on Jeskai Affinity. The deck, whether it's going big with Constructs or Kappa Cannoneer or sort of bumbling its way there with 1/1s, the deck has looked really good, and it takes the first game here in the quarterfinals. So let's take a look at the sideboard that both of our players are working with here. Esper Gorio's Casey Ryback's going to be on the play in game 2, having dropped that first one there. All right, Devin, what do you look at and see that you like out of the sideboard here?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about Affinity basically all day, and we're trying to figure out what specific cards people have decided to bring to the table here, specifically for Affinity. And it looks like Casey is opted for Wrath of the Sky. So there's 2 copies of those. Those will certainly be coming in, cleaning up the Urza sagas and all the other cheap artifacts along with it. Pest Control, it is not as good as Wrath of the Skies in this matchup, but still probably will certainly be coming in, cleaning up constructs, all the artifacts, things like that. From there, you could consider something like Mystical Dispute, because there are quite a bit of blue cards in the Affinity deck. There's Emery, Kappa Cannoneer, Pinnacle Emissary, and Tameo, and Thoughtcast.
Yeah,
So,
catching any of those for 1 mana feels good, and catching Cannoneer can be game changing. So.
Yep. And then I think the Subtlety as well. That one's good against Kappa Cannoneer.
Yeah. That said, you're going to have to find ways, find what to cut around, right? Because as we see, this deck has Atraxas and a Griselbrand and 4 Goryo's Nightmares and 4 Psychic Frogs and a Ketramos. And it definitely has some room. I'm sure you can cut down some numbers. But again, we talk about a deck that has a thing it's doing, and you can only sort of get away from that so much. Now, the reason the Goryo's Vengeance in particular, I think, is such a sort of a strong archetype, especially once Psychic Frog was introduced to the mix, is that sort of the Vengeance plus 4 to 5 reanimate creatures is sort of good enough when it's just Atraxa, right? Like you can just put that package into a deck and then build your deck how you want. Because when you're playing things like Faithless Mending or Psychic Frog, the downside of drawing your, uncastable Atraxa or Griselbrand is lessened quite a bit.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's take a look over at Jacob's sideboard, the Jeskai Affinity deck we've looked at a few times today. You need some graveyard hate, so we're probably looking at our Soul Guide Lanterns, probably some counter magic. Probably not Whip Flares this time.
Not a lot here, right? I mean, there's the Soul Guide Lantern, which, that's definitely going to be coming in. Pithing Needle could maybe to stop like Psychic Frog or the 1 Griselbrand. Force of Negation to fight over stuff like Wrath of the Skies or a main phase Goryo's Vengeance. Test of Talents is pretty interesting. I don't know, that one is counter a spell, and then you get all the counter an instant or sorcery rather, and you get all the copies of that card. So if you
This
can hit
probably a
something
matchup
like
where it comes in, right?
yeah, Orio's Vengeance, that's a good target for it.
Yeah. So maybe
Um,
we'll yeah.
Canonist, I don't think. Whip Flare, no. So yeah, I think it's really just the Lantern, maybe the Needle, the Test of Talents, and the Force of Negation. So yeah, I mean a decent amount, but like not a ton of specifically
Well,
targeted graveyard hate.
right. And of course, some of it, and by some of it, I mean you have Tormod's Crypt in your main deck,
Yeah.
along with 4 Urza Sagas to go find them, along with, some amount of card draw slash Emery to mill it. So it's one of those things where less is more when it comes to the number of sort of hate cards you're bringing in, because you have a lot of ways to find them. That said, this is a matchup where sometimes you just have to have that stuff as soon as turn 2 or turn 3, and you don't necessarily have time to dig for it. So that's sort of the game both players are going to play. But you saw in game 1 when Jacob draws a piece of interaction and just sort of has that protection online, can kind of really disrupt the Goryo's deck enough to find a way to victory while demanding interaction on its own. So here we go, off and running. Both players, I think, keep their opening 7s, and it is a Tameo to start things off for Jacob.
Yeah, this is from Jacob's side of things. This is certainly a matchup where you don't typically want to play Urza Saga on turn one, although unless you have the way to the mana generation to be able to activate it on turn two. But even in situations where Jacob does not have the Mox Opal to be able to activate Saga on turn two, still might want to play it just to, especially on the draw, to make sure he can get that piece of graveyard hate before Casey is able to set up a
Right.
Goryo's.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Lots to consider for both players here. And they took a while with the sideboarding too, as I think, obviously a lot on the line. We're playing the top 8 here. But also just a lot to consider in the matchup, right? In modern, not a format that's been featured a ton at, high competitive level play. Been a lot of standards so far this year. So for a lot of people, maybe this is the first they've kind of looked in on modern in a while. So definitely want to take their time, make sure they know what they have their sideboard cards for. But I spot a Psychic Frog in play, and I think an Atraxa in hand for Casey here.
That's a combo. Yeah, Psychic Frog, for everything that it does, it is a creature that deals a lot of damage, draws you additional cards. It's also just a discard outlet for your Goryo's Vengeance, if it didn't already do enough.
Yes, it slotted perfectly into this deck. It's interesting. It almost serves as I didn't play around when the card's sort of inspiration Psychotog was played, but I don't know. Psychotog, I think, was more of a finisher than an enabler, whereas Psychic Frog tends to be, it seems like, more of an enabler, although I've certainly seen it finish some people off. And in fact, 2 of them here for Casey to start the game off.
Yeah, and I think
A third land.
I'm pretty sure Casey had a Goryo's Vengeance in hand, so did have the ability to go for Goryo's and Atraxa, and just said, you know what, play another frog, right? Didn't have any way to back up the Goryo's, so
Yeah.
sort of putting Jacob under the gun in a different way, where just deploying the second frog, Jacob clearly didn't want to block the first one, not going to block this time. Yeah,
Doesn't want to do this
Jacob
either.
ahead, gets 2 more
Well,
cards, and
Casey missed that third land drop,
yep.
so needs those, like, really was leaning on those frogs, and I am not
I don't
certain
know
that
if he
he
drew a
got
land.
there.
Yeah, they drew 3 cards. I'm not sure if any of them were lands.
Oh, no.
Well, I mean, if we're gonna discard the hand size, we might as well just go for it anyways, probably.
Yeah, just throw him in on the frogs. Yeah?
Well, I guess you could, yeah, instead of discarding the hand size, you can just discard, Atraxa or what have you. I think what Casey wants to do is maybe go for an end step, and you sort of make Jacob use mana, not on Casey's turn, right?
Right.
Because you can imagine, if Jacob holds up the ability to make Saga, and Casey goes for a Goryo's end of turn, and Jacob has to fight over that, that's one less construct token. So that's more basically you're
Buys
like
you a lot
sort
of
of
time, yeah.
yeah,
And
you're
the
really
frogs
restricting
will get.
Jacob's resources.
Yeah, and and if that's how the way the game goes too, right? Like, the frogs will continue to do work in that scenario where you just kind of trade turns in mana, doing what amounts to nothing, and the frogs just run away with things as they tend to do. So That's certainly how, Casey's probably hoping things go. Jacob has the 4th land, so he's going to have plenty of mana for whatever the play is here. And it looks like we're starting off with an Opal.
Jacob played Tambio on turn 1 and didn't have a profitable attack with it until turn 4.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of brutal.
It's been a tough sledding here for Tambio.
Yeah, not often you see that, but Psychic Frog does have that upside. So, okay. Mox Opal, and then Jacob goes into the tank a little bit here, thinking this one through. Oh, no, we're actually just going to pass back. So, all right. That is a land. That is a basic land picked up for Casey. So, a 3rd land is available now. Didn't even do anything on the instep there.
Yeah, I think Casey has just basically everything. I think he has the Gorios. I think I saw a Solitude and an Ephemerate too. So
He's
has
going to
the
make
ability.
Jacob do something before he
Right.
does anything. He's got the frogs to force his hand.
Yeah, you see Jacob he doesn't want to do anything, and Casey's like, well, I mean, if you don't want to do anything, I don't have to do anything. I'm just gonna bury him at card advantage. Yeah, 2 more cards here for Casey. Well, now he's flooded.
Yeah. All right. Well, Casey is trying to find a way back into the game, and I guess a 3rd Psychic Frog.
Why not?
I say a way back into this game. I meant with mana, but like the 3rd Psychic Frog, hey, he's ahead on life, and that's a ton of pressure now. And it is a construct coming in for Jacob. So I guess we're off and running in terms of the race.
I mean, if the first 2 are good, the 3rd one's got to be better, right?
Okay. Well, it was good enough that it earned the counter spell from Jacob there. The rebuke takes care of that frog. That was a pretty good sequence, I think, for Jacob.
Now with the counterspell gone, Casey can now go for the Solitude, yeah? Because now Jacob is on shields down, so now we can go Solitude and Ephemerate, clear both of the creatures, and that'll make sure there's no pressure.
Casey being mana screwed like that was going to have a ton of gas in hand, and this is basically the perfect way back in. This is eating a.
Okay.
The Ephemerate is running into the Force of Negation here, though, so it's not as devastating as it could be. In fact, not even close to that. Is Solitude now in the graveyard, and we still have some creatures, still staring down a couple of frogs, but that was honestly not a bad sequence for Jacob there after Casey thought he had his way back in.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think if you're in Casey's side of things, you got to be happy with that.
Yeah.
You got an extra card out of Jacob. Now there is construct 2 artifacts, so Jacob can go make another token, get Lava Spur Boots. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So hasting the token would be an additional 1. That's 11. So then if Jacob can somehow play 3 artifacts, that would be presenting a 17-point attack. I don't know if he can play 3 artifacts, but maybe something like actually an Emissary and a 0 would also do it, because the Emissary would be 1 and then the 0 would be 2 more. So we are going to make a token and presumably going to go towards that Lava Spur Boots.
That's the mind of an Affinity player at work there, by the way.
You also have to wonder how close is Casey to just killing you with the frogs, right? Because Casey has 5
cards
in hand? 5, that's 9, 10 with the draw step, so not quite.
But enough of it is a bit of obviously becoming a consideration, because that is what the frogs do. You think you're doing okay. Oh, they're just drawing up some stuff, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, they just pitch 6, 7 cards to it and you're dead. So that is something you always have to consider. But the math does seem to work out, and you called it. Here come the boots.
These boots were made for a walk-in.
These boots were made for hasting up these constructs, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's no walking. They're stomping.
Yeah.
There's no walking here.
All right, rough spot if you're Casey and you just die here, right? That would got to feel brutal after you feel like you've been in at least you
pretty
felt
unlikely.
like you managed the game to get to this spot. But we'll see. It's a big moment here. Remember, Jacob already up a game, so if he is able to come up with 17 points of damage here, I would send him on into the semifinals.
Yeah, the last 2 cards have to be Panicle Emissary and a 0. I don't think it's any of that because we're just going to combat. So this is an 11-point attack, put Casey down to 6. And if Jacob does not kill Casey this turn, I saw a card in Casey's hand. It looks like Casey does have the Wrath of the Skies. So unless there
That'll clear
is
some
another,
tokens.
yeah, it could be a Metallic Rebuke here from Jacob because it does have the Seachrome Coast and 3 artifacts untapped. So maybe has a Metallic Rebuke, but
Casey also has to think it through, right? Because if you want more cards, you can attack first, get a couple more cards into your hand before you make a decision, but then you don't have a blocker should you need it. We do have a 4th frog, though, who's made an appearance in hand. That's what we're...
let's cast it. No, he's not going to cast the 4th frog. He's thinking about it. No, we're gonna go for Wrath. And it makes sense to, I guess. Ooh,
Pest control.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing.
This will clear out all of the 0s and 1s.
Looks like there's a counter spell.
It is running into the counter spell. Metallic Rebuke. That was a huge, huge play there from Jacob. Keeping the tokens alive, keeps the pressure on. Your opponent has been incredibly mana tight. And now they're down more.
One other thing that's worth noting here is Casey had the option to hold up a black source, decided to hold up the Hallowed Fountain instead, and maybe has the Gorios in hand for the Atraxa, right? So if he had left the black source untapped, maybe could go for attack with Psychic Frog, draw untapped land number 4, discard Atraxa Gorios. But now he's in this other situation where, I can attack with the Psychic Frogs to draw, maybe find a Solitude, or we can play defense, right? Because the Psychic Frogs can maybe get into combat with these constructs, but so there's 2.
I think he has a second Wrath, or rather, he still has Wrath of the Skies in hand.
Okay.
So there's also, if I just survive for another turn, I can blow up all of this stuff, and then I actually have the 4th frog in hand. If I think I can just run my opponent out of cards.
3 mana Pinnacle could be an emissary here from Jacob.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So this will make the constructs 6/6s, 8/8s rather, or 7/7 because Mox Opal Legend roll. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1 to 7/7, 1 is an 8/7, and Casey has 4 cards in hand. So if you dump all 4 to 1 frog, you can't even save it. You can make your frog a 6/7, so you have to go.
You're priced into
chump,
probably double chumping and then wrathing and following up with another frog, and hoping that that's good enough.
Yeah, so chump, take 4, go to 2. But here's the other issue: Casey only has 4 lands, right? So doesn't have the ability to wrath for 3. And if he doesn't draw an untapped land that isn't a shock land, because now he's a 2, he can't actually kill the Pinnacle Emissary. So that's another wrinkle as well.
Really tight game here. It's a good match.
Yeah, I mean, I really thought Casey was in a commanding position there with the double frogs. Jacob wasn't doing that much, but that one turn where just construct, untap, construct, haste, hit for 11, and it was that's all it takes to get the affinity deck back into a winning position from when it just looks so dire for Jacob.
Yeah, a couple key counterspells too along the way, right?
Casey Druid Island.
Playing in, so okay.
Which is perfect because that's not a shock land or a fetch land. So now you can wrath for 3, which presumably we're going. We can actually just go for the Gorios too, right? Yeah, okay. Yep, which is, yeah.
That is a kind of a sad shake of the head from Jacob, who goes, thought I had this one. Now we're going to have to fight through this Gorio, or this Atraxa here.
Yeah, now Casey could just find the Ephemerate, presumably Ephemerate the Atraxa, keep that in play, and Wrath of the Skies the construct tokens away.
I don't see an Ephemerate there, though, right?
It is true.
I'm not sure what's in the hand, of course. We see a frog and a couple other things, but
I believe the holdings are Frog, Wrath, and Mending. Maybe not.
All right. Well, no Ephemerate means that the game stays in a pretty interesting spot here. Now, so how does Jacob deal with a resolved Atraxa? Is there any way through this?
There is one copy of Aether Spellbomb. So that's the, usually a saga target, but If Jacob does draw that card, and if Casey has the Ephemerate to keep the Atraxa in play, that is, if Jacob draws the Aether Spellbomb, that can bounce the Atraxa. But other than that, not really. I guess the Dusk Rose Reliquary, if that came in.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it would, but that would be an out as well. So
yeah, well, the Wrath for 0 does mean that Jacob does get to keep the Pinnacle Emissary in play. So, okay, well, yeah, there's the Solitude. Never mind. So that's gone. And Traxa also gone. So maybe Jacob's best draw here, maybe another Pinnacle Emissary. We can haste that and then hit for 4.
yeah, both players at 9 life here. Wow, Jacob just had to pass back. And Casey sat up a little bit, moves a little quicker, says, no, maybe I turn the corner here. Psychic Frog number 4 comes
He answered the
along.
first 3, but
yeah, well, this one, he's up, what, 2 or 3 cards? He drew, what, 2 or 3 or 4 cards off of Psychic Frogs? Checks out, although this one is going to bite the dust underneath a portable hole.
You know, Corbin, that's what they always say. It's the 4th frog that gets you.
Yeah, that's what they say, for sure.
That is what they say. They do say that. This game has been very there's been a lot of back and forth, very swingy game where it's, we thought Casey was very ahead early with the frogs, then Jacob had that big turn with the constructs, and
Well,
Casey had the second
screwed,
wrath,
right?
yeah.
Missed multiple his third land drop multiple times. Was probably already planning out dinner in his head. Instead, finds a way back into it with some tight play and some clutch lands off the top. It's going to be a late dinner, though, if you win the tournament.
Sorry about that. I don't know if you guys caught that on mic, but I dropped my water bottle. But I apologize. I will not do that again.
All right. Well, the Psychic Frog comes back because a prismatic ending takes down the portable hole. So now we've got a Lava Spur Boots
Wait, the 4th frog is back.
Anything Jacob finds, staring down a lonely frog out of Casey.
Yeah, Jacob does have enough mana to cast a Kappa Cannoneer, but doesn't have the extra mana to also give it haste.
Yeah, that was a long time to think on his turn. So it was either a complete whiff or not sure what we're thinking about there. If it's not just maybe a rebuke.
Yeah, but that is sort of maybe Jacob's best draw at this point is the Kappa Cannoneer.
Yeah.
Although, Casey does have enough mana at this point to be able to go Solitude and pay the ward. And we might just be done here because I believe that is Goryu's on Gristlebrand. There you go.
Nice comeback by Casey Ryback.
Yeah.
Takes it down, evens up our quarterfinal match here at 1 apiece with Jacob Havard. He missed his 3rd land drop for at least 1 turn, possibly 2. But came back and won that. Really, basically, I mean, you get so much mana out of a Solitude Ephemerate turn that it can really catch you up. So let's
look at
the sideboards here. Go ahead.
Casey can't even believe he won that game. Look at the expression on his face. But yeah, I mean, there was that situation where, like you said, Casey missed a land drop and then drew 2 additional cards from the 2 frogs that he had in play, and then missed another land drop. But yeah, was able to just claw back. Very, very well played. As far as sideboards, I think we're just, mostly the cards that we already talked about. The Lantern, definitely. The Force of Negations, we saw those come in for Jacob. The Test of Talents, but other than that, probably not changing a lot here.
Do you think this deck can afford to, as someone who knows much more about Affinity than myself, where is this deck at on cutting Tamios? Because Tamio came down on turn 1 in that game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then was stonewalled almost the entire time. Is there any room there where it doesn't match up, or is that just kind of a poor run of variance in the way it lined up?
Tamio is certainly not great into Psychic Frog, but I will say with Jacob on the play, Tamio gets a little bit better because you can at least get the first attack in before Casey plays the frog. And I think under most circumstances, if Casey has an unchecked frog, he's going to be in a big advantage anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if say for example, if Jacob decided to trim on portable holes because there's not a lot of targets, maybe more of those came back in to sort of supplement the Tamios, because if you can answer the frog, Tamio gets a lot better.
Of course, yeah. has the ability to run away with things. Just so much value on that card for 1 mana that
Yeah, and
it works
and
out in this deck.
and Tameo is also a threat, right? If
Mhm.
left unchecked, the ultimate will win the game. If you draw half your deck, it's pretty hard to brick.
Yeah. Well, especially when drawing into your deck like that will produce mana, given that you're playing so many 0-cost cards. Okay, well, off to game 3 we go. Both players taking a look at their opening hands here, and it's like a bit of a thinker for Casey. Big moment here, big decision.
I see a Mystical Dispute. That's the only card that I can really
He shifts it back.
identify.
This is going to be on the draw for this one here. Opts to ship that one back. It was missing something. And I think in this, obviously we saw in game 2, at least anyway, Casey doesn't mind keeping a 2-lander. That's for sure. So that hand, we assume was missing something else, or just didn't even have enough lands. So these decks in Modern these days, and I shouldn't say these days, everything is very lean, right? Even in the Reanimator deck, everything that isn't the Reanimator targets is very low to the ground, and you can get by on pretty low land counts, especially in a format where all your fetch lands can grab surveil lands, which then give you sort of, however you want to count it, surveil as a look for more lands when you're digging.
Yeah, stuff like Quantum Riddler and Solitude as well. They have 5 in the top right, but you're never going to pay 5 mana for those cards.
Yeah. Yeah.
I shouldn't
And
say never, but
they cycle through too, right? Is when you do play them. So keeps things moving through the deck. So looks like this one's good with Casey. Ships a card to the bottom, and here we go.
All right, let's see if we can have another explosive start here for Jacob.
This is not bad.
Does Turn 1 Tameo explosive? I mean, in some regard it is, but
not explosive in the sense that we've seen this affinity deck just explode permanents onto the battlefield, but still a turn 1 I think you're probably okay with if you're Jacob here. Remember, he did keep 7, so we presume he's fairly happy with the hand. He is back on the play for game 3.
Tameo's going exile. Looks like a prismatic ending. Yeah, there it is. See what Jacob has to follow up. Ideally, want some sort of pressure, maybe like an Urza Saga this turn, maybe a Pinnacle Emissary and a couple zeros off the top. There's always this kind of interesting dilemma with the affinity deck. It's like if you have the zeros in your hand, do you play them early to bluff the Metallic Rebuke? It looks like, well, there's the Emissary, and there's at least 1 0.
Yeah, this was a nice start by Jacob in that it was going to be Tameo into Emissary plus an Opal, and really, just do work. But yeah, passes the turn with Metallic Rebuke represented here. Yeah, because you can improvise with the Opal.
Mm-hmm.
But just a surveil land and a pass back from Casey's. We got not positive on the graveyard. I don't think that there's a big target in there.
It's impossible to tell. There's the glare. The glare is kind of killing me right now. Okay. So Jacob choosing to not deploy the Pinnacle Emissary. I wonder what that signifies, because you would
have had it open, right? You would have been able to still play that and keep open the Rebuke.
Yeah, and even if you're worried about Solitude on Emissary end step to take down shields on Rebuke, you could just not attack with the Thopter, the drone token. So, wonder what that signifies here from Jacob.
All right, well, we're just going to cycle the Bauble, draw for turn. Now, the pressure he did add to the board is in the form of putting that second counter on the Urza Saga, so now you can threaten Karnstrucks. But not a lot going on the board for Jacob, although we got a couple new cards there now thanks to the Bauble. So we'll see if he's able to get going a little bit here. Kind of a slow start after that Tameo bit the dust, but looks like he's just going to play the Pinnacle.
And now we're casting the Emissary. I wonder why we're casting it this turn instead of last turn. Well, we found the Tormod's Crypt. It's good to draw on the one of. And presumably, if there is some sort of large creature in the graveyard, now Jacob just doesn't care about it, and the portable hole as well. So,
well, this was a turn of events here.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
for a second, it looked like Jacob was going to have kind of a weak turn where you just play the emissary, or he's going to play something else. He's going to make a 1/1. But having both the hate piece and the removal means that you are winning the fair game on board with just your 3/3 and your 1/1s, and you have the combo part covered with the crypt. So Casey is actually just going to be warping in that Riddler and trying to dig his way out of this a little bit. So we're going to ephemerate the Riddler, keep it around.
Yeah, the only thing that Jacob didn't have covered that turn was Wrath of the Skies.
Yeah.
But thankfully for Jacob, Casey did not have that. So sure, there's the Riddler in play, and that can maybe hold off some of the 1/1s. But you could even say go activate Urza Saga. If Jacob has a land in hand, can activate the Saga, go get the Lava Spur Boots, play the land equip, and still hold up the Rebuke. And that would be what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There'd be an attack for 10. You could even send in the drones as well to get in 12. Actually, with that, okay, so 10. If you block the 3/3, that'd be 13. So not quite enough. Casey fetching here. I wonder if there's a solitude or if we don't want to get needled. I think we just didn't want to get needled.
Also possible. I don't know if I've seen that. I don't know the last if I've seen that one very often pop up in Modern, but it is there.
Well, it's one of those things, right? You forget about it, and then it happens to you, and you're like, oh well, yeah.
For those who don't know, we're talking about Pithy Needle can name any card, right? And then the activated ability, so that card can't be activated. What people don't realize is that, or think about, is that also means your fetch lands. So if you name Marsh Flats, you can suddenly no longer answer or crack your Marsh Flats, and it strip mines it or whatever. Yeah,
just get them good. I myself am a fan of a good strip mine every now and again. Maybe not the one that's legal and timeless, but
Tectonic Edge. I was a big fan of that one back in the day. Now we've got Demolition Field is clutch in many formats.
There's the land, so equip the Lava Spur Boots and still hold up the Metallic Rebuke, and this should be an attack for... Yeah, I guess the question for Jacob is how much else do you want to send? You could send everything, let Casey block the Pinnacle Emissary, and then Casey would take 13 and fall to 2. And I don't hate that. Yeah, looks like we're just getting it in there. I like it.
We've seen time and again, although, I mean, I guess it didn't technically get there last game, but the drones have just been enough of a threat to just finish games off, right? Like after things get messy, after constructs get involved, like the drones just kind of do work. And that's why it makes an attack like this possible.
Yeah, Casey is, I believe, should be taking 13, falling to 2. And then from here... Yeah, so you can ephemerate now, and then on upkeep, you get 2 more. I'm just going to keep cycling. But if Jacob does have the Metallic Rebuke, that might be good enough. If Casey then has to try to present 2 different threats, right? Something like Wrath of the Skies and Agorio's Vengeance in the same turn, and it's not clear that Casey can do that. Well, there's the first ephemerate.
We have rebound triggers on the stack here, right? That's what makes this work.
Right.
Yeah. So the rebound trigger goes on the stack. So it's not that you have to target it with both ephemerates and then one of them fizzles. You put the rebound triggers on the stack so you can do this as you want, which for Casey meant just drawing 3 or 4 cards here.
And I think that might be a Solitude in Casey's hand. So that is step 1. That answers one of the threats. So you can Solitude the token. Maybe there's another ephemerate in hand for Casey. Looks like Psychic Frog, Mystical Dispute, Ephemerate, Faithful Mending. Can't quite get a good look at the rest of it. I don't think I see a Wrath, though. Yeah, Casey, with the Riddler in play has one creature has 1 blocker, right? So the Solitude on the construct token, that would answer one of them. The Riddler can block a drone token. You still have to answer at least 1 more. So that could be done with the frog, maybe. So you go frog, solitude, block, go to 1.
Tight spot here. Casey got so many cards over the last turn cycle, but as is often the case in Modern, is under pressure from some 1/1s. Not even an infinite number. Not even elves.
Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't mentioned Casey's SpongeBob Basics a single time. We talked about Jacob's full text ones, but
yeah, they
SpongeBob
are.
Basics. Now we're talking.
I do. They do look. Hey, they look good on camera. They're striking.
Oh, you know what the awkward part is here too? Casey has to pay 1 to kill the construct token because it has ward 1. So
Yes,
I don't know if that necessarily like messes with how many spells he can cast this turn, but you see the shake of the head for Casey. I think it might.
whatever the math he's mathing, he's not liking. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
And he just passes, I think. No, maybe he was just thinking about it. No, he did just pass. Okay.
All right. Well, Jacob says, okay, this is the turn we would think because Casey is at 2 life. Jacob has multiple cards in hand. I would expect some fireworks here.
Jacob can also, because I forgot the saga was going to chapter 2. He can even main phase make a saga token and then equip the new saga token with the lava spur boots to make another lethal creature. So then if he does that, right? So say he goes equip, Casey maybe respawn solid. Oh, because then Casey could solitude the new one, not have to pay the ward, chump block that, but then there's still 3 drone tokens. Yeah, I don't know.
Isn't affinity math fun? Everything you just laid out, that was Jacob just put his cards down and goes, oh man, all right.
It'd be easier if he had Arcbound Ravager, I'm just saying.
It sure would, wouldn't it? You just turn them all sideways. Every one of them's lethal. All right, well, here we go. We've got a decision, and it's actually to lead with a Tameo. Okay.
Tameo.
Followed by...
Which is actually kind of funny because the Lava Spur Boots would give it a point of power. So not normally a lethal threat, but
now there's... you've got 5 attackers. You need 2 of them to get through.
Right. So you can now I wonder if that changes the math because now Casey can just solitude the construct without having to pay the mana. So I wonder if whatever math Casey was going through last turn, maybe he needed Jacob to do exactly this and like give him. I guess it wouldn't change the math, right? Because still.
No, but this is an interesting. It's an interesting line to see. I didn't expect the Tameo hasted out to be where we went here, with given that Jacob has several cards in hand, but Jacob does have a counter spell open, mana open, right? And that could if he's sitting on that, that may very much change how he interacts with the turn, knowing that he has that to lean on. In case he only having 5 mana total is basically going to have to run whatever spell matters into the counter spell.
Yeah, I wonder if the plan here is okay. So Faithful Mending up to 4, discard some number of cards, whatever. If Casey, I don't know if he had Ephemerate already in his hand, but if he can find an Ephemerate, then he's kind of in a good spot because he can go Solitude, Ephemerate the Solitude, and then on one of the drone tokens, block the other one. Yeah, and then that would be able to clean up the others. But as is, without this, I guess even without the Ephemerate, he still doesn't die because he can Solitude the Construct and take 3, go to 1.
Well, we've put Solitude onto the stack. So this is step 1 here. Jacob's thinking it through.
There's no Ephemerate in hand.
Yeah, you would expect if he had the counter spell, he would have just immediately fired it off. So he doesn't. The construct goes away to the Solitude. Frog, land, Atraxa.
Yeah, so then damage. Casey's going to fall to 1. One of those drones should be dead. Yeah, okay, we'll get that sorted out.
Okay,
so now Casey at 1
life,
still facing down 3 lethal attackers.
Yeah, exactly. 3 lethal attackers, but he needed to find a way to untap there, and now that he has, that was the turn Jacob was going to kill you if he had a really straightforward way to kill you. Now you have to feel like, if you're Casey, there is a line back into this thing.
Yeah, so with prismatic ending is a good one because now you can prismatic ending the lava spur boots, and then that means the next construct will not threaten a lethal attacker. So if you prismatic ending the boots, Jacob at most can only present 2 lethal attackers next turn. But you only have 1 blocker, so you still have to find something to answer the other one. I don't know if Casey. Yeah, he's Frog. Okay, so you can go pending the boots, play Frog, Riddler Frog, block the 2 drones. I guess that wouldn't work if Jacob has either Spellbomb in his deck because he can Spellbomb one of the blockers.
Yeah, I think that the saga is going to end up being what changes everything here, right? Because there's lots of lines I can see here that work without Spellbomb being considered.
Yeah.
Once you consider the Spellbomb, I don't know. But they do probably start with most of them with some form of this, which is prismatic ending on the boots. As you said, that takes away the threat of the construct with haste coming down on the next turn. Here comes a frog and a pass of the turn, it looked like.
Yeah, and assuming that the Spellbomb remains in deck for Jacob and he decides to go for it, that would be this. I don't believe Casey's leftovers are good enough. I think it's a land and a Traxa and a dispute. So if he has the Spellbomb and decides to go for it, then
Yeah, it is that decides to go for it part that always seems to
oh,
be
it's a Goryo's is the last card. So I believe it's Goryo's. Was it Goryo's Atraxa Dispute? Yeah, but the Goryo's is not good enough because of the Tormod's Crypt.
Yeah, I think he actually chose to keep the Atraxa in hand, and the idea that if the game went long, he would cast it. I guess
Wait,
because he
I
would have.
wonder. We actually Casey might have had a line. We could have maybe gone pending the Tormod's Crypt, and then we could have went pending Crypt, 2 mana for Frog, discard Atraxa, and then Goryo's for 2 mana. Interesting. I wonder if that was that could have been a line.
Yeah,
Because I believe that's a Goryo's in hand for Casey, if I'm not mistaken.
it is also possible. Well, no, that's
Oh no, the Goryo's was discarded to the mending. That's what it is. I knew I saw Goryo's at some point. Yeah, he discarded Goryo's to the mending. That's what it is. So he could have kept Goryo's in hand.
And here is the Spellbomb. It was still in the deck. Jacob does go get it. He does show it. Puts Casey to the question: do you have anything here, or is this game? He drew the ending for the prismatic ending for the turn, is what chat has updated us on. And that means it was too late for that. And the game goes to Jacob Havard, who wins the quarterfinals with Jeskai Affinity here at the NRG Championship. That was a wild match and
that was a lot.
Wild game 3 in ending.
That was a really, really intense match. There was a lot of back and forth there. I mean, all those games were just amazing. There was that game where Casey had 2 frogs, missing land drops. We thought he was dead. We thought he was winning. We thought he was dead. Then he won anyways.
Yeah,
just a lot of back and forth. Really
very
fun
back and forth. And you know what? We're not done. We have more magic coming from the quarterfinals for you. And you know what? Why don't we do it right now? Let's go down to the table. Well, as always, these players got us. They got us on the sideboard. And as soon as we go down to the table. So welcome back into the booth. Maybe we'll get some deck lists. But either way, we'll get some magic coming to you in a few moments because we are in the modern 10K top 8 here in Mundelein at the NRG Championship Series. And we've had some great matches so far. I think we had, was it 6 different decks in the top 8?
Oh, yeah.
5 different decks in the top 8?
6. I think it might have been 6.
Yeah. Very impressive overall, got to say. It has been a great tournament. And I got to say, I think that there were a couple lines there at the end because there was also pitching to the Solitude where there was a mending pitched. Could have been an Atraxa or something at that point. So lots of decision points throughout the game. Very interesting to follow because that's what Modern is. And we've seen a lot of it. So talk about, I think we were trying to follow up with blue-white in this next round, Devin. So talk me through what we might find there.
I think we're actually, I don't know if we have a second feature match for it. I think these players, that match took a little bit longer. So I think we might be heading to a break real quick here.
Oh, that might have been the end of it, not my bad. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, here you go, everybody. We are heading directly into the semifinals next then. So stick with us here at the NRG Championship Series, and we'll be back on the other side with some top 4 action.